Very powerful. Wow. So, many different levels of joy. The first level of joy is coming from a place of darkness, meaning you dealt with darkness, you owned whatever you need to own. That itself brings you to a sense of joy because you've dealt with it. The next sense of joy is redirecting your focus, not focusing on the darkness of the what's inside of me that needs to be dealt with, my shortcomings, my negativity, that darkness, right, that dealing with, that itself is a joy. But now redirecting focus. Yeah, that's a part of me. But there's a deeper part of me that I want to identify with, my divine nature. My divine nature is what I focus in on. When I focus in on that, that itself, that's the real me. Now, the problem with that real me is right now it is imprisoned. It's the real me. It's the prince that is imprisoned, but not in the Father's home in the palace. So now I have an opportunity that God created that reality. I didn't create that reality. He put my soul into my body. If he left my soul up there, I wouldn't have this problem. But now that the soul is in here, well, the body is taking primary, real estate in my life and focus, because that's the human condition. But that descent is in order to have a greater ascent, that I can not just identify with my divine soul, but I can extricate it from its imprisonment by focusing on learning Torah and doing a mitzvah. That's the tool that allows my soul to connect to God, to be released from its imprisonment. When I get that, what a joy that is. That I have the capability of freeing myself. That's another level of joy. Freeing myself to connect with God. That's very powerful. That we can introduce in our lives. This awareness. Again, 3 steps here. Dealing with your stuff brings joy, but dealing with that negativity, right, that you've dealt with it. How you deal with it is negative and a negative, as we explained, right? As we explained previously. Then refocus. Till now we've been focused on owning your stuff, which means dealing with the negativity from within. Refocus. That itself brings a joy. Wow, I've got this beautiful part of me, a divine soul, crown prince, that is a part of God. Now the problem is it's in prison. It doesn't have its self-expression. It can't be itself. So I'm going to do everything to release it from its imprisonment. I do that with joy. And the release is joyful. The release is joyful. Because then you're connected. Because you're doing a mitzvah. Bound up and one with God. Any questions, any comments on this? 2 question marks before you ask a question, please. So, John, I'm sorry, repost because I lost the feed. So if you don't mind. And likewise, Davida, I don't see yours either. So if you don't mind, just repost it. Yes, Jessica, your descent of your soul in a body in order that you can have a greater ascent. Absolutely. Yeah. How do we separate the joy coming from dealing with it and the joy by the human nature that comes from our ego? Yeah, it's a different kind of joy. The ego, I suggest, is not joy. Ego wants, and the animal soul wants happiness. What is the difference between joy and being happy? So joy in Hebrew is simcha. The word happy in Hebrew is got no translation. There's no word for happy. You know why? Jews are miserable people. That was a joke. I mean, we can't be miserable, yes. And that was an anti-Semitic because I'm Jewish. What does that mean? Happiness is about having something in your life. So the animal soul wants, give me, give me, give me. You know, give me, good food, give me a nice car, give me a nice vacation. I'll be happy. No, you won't. You'll be happy for, good food for an hour, a a nice car for a month, and a vacation maybe it'll be good for, you'll be happy for a few months, maybe, right? Joy is not about having something. It's about an attitude. It's about a perspective that you bring that attitude of the mind and a sentiment of the heart, that you do it with joy. So there's a joy in fixing something, fixing ourselves, right? You have a joy like, you accomplished, you fixed something broke, you fixed it. There's a joy there. Absolutely. Right? There's a joy in, which is again a mindset, a sentiment of the heart, of identifying with something that's divine about you. Right? It's not giving you something, it's not, you're not got something from it. You are something from it. So therefore you have joy. There's a joy in extricating that divine part of you, releasing it from its imprisonment. There's a real joy there. That means there's an attitude of that, right? There's not saying, it's not that you've got something. It's not the results of something. It's not the consequence. Happiness is about the consequence. I went on vacation. I got vacation, so I got happiness. I got a car, I got happiness. Right? You got something. I got a good meal, I got happiness. Right? Joy, it's not you got something and therefore you're joyful. Joy is a recognition of something, an awareness of something. That, schmuck. Right? It's an attitude of, I've got something divine of me. So I didn't get something, it's already a part of you, right? I can do something to release it. So I didn't get something, I actually have to work on it. I have to work on it. I have to release, I have to do a mitzvah. I have to study Torah to release my soul from its imprisonment. So that's not I didn't get something. I actually had to work in order to, but that's a mindset, an attitude. That's the distinction. That's very important. So then, David, I hope that it helps to make the distinction between the ego and coming from a good place. John, was bitterness of the water at Mara along the lines that became sweetened when Moshe threw in the tree the stick into the water. Yes. So the stick refers to, metaphorically, the Eitz Chaim, the tree of life, which is Torah, right? Hold on to the tree of life. It gives life. So that refers to Torah. So he threw in Torah, and you don't have Torah, so you're going to have bitterness in your life. Everything you're going to see in your life is bitter, because it will be, I didn't get, I don't have, or I don't have enough. I want more. So there's bitterness, because you just want happiness. But if you throw in this stick, you throw in Torah, the Eitz Chaim of Torah, so that will sweeten the bitterness, because that will give you an attitude of joy. Yes, so very good, John. Thank you. What happens, of all of this, but we fail later on and repeat the same wrong? That's why we constantly learn Tanya every day. You think I don't make mistakes? You think that I do everything the way? No. I make mistakes, and I continue learning and to grow, and that's what we do. Okay. Michael, please share with us.
Moshe asked Pharaoh that his people can only go for 3 days to the desert and pray to their God. But obviously they escaped from it. Was the process that they were... Moshe could have asked Pharaoh, after the plagues beaten the people of Misraim, that he would let them go forever. But
right.
He asked for 3 days. Did he ask for 3 days that the people of Israel were forced to flee, because otherwise the process would be too easy, and they that the fleeing itself, fleeing from its out of his own Misraim, that was the breaking point?
So exactly. In other words, the we when we make a Passover Seder, so we're reliving going out of Egypt. So how do we relive going out of Egypt? Because Egypt means constraints, limitations, imprisonment. So the word Mitzrayim, which means Egypt, comes to the word Meitzar, which means constraints, limitations. Right? It has constraints and limitations. The Nile River, that's called being in denial. Right? The Nile River was the straits of the Nile, right? That irrigated their land and became their god. What a straitjacket to live in, to think that the Nile is your god. Truly in denial, right? So it all fits in with the name. So the Jews are now imprisoned there. The Jew representing the divine soul. That divine soul in prison needs to flee. That's why 3 days only. At that point, Pharaoh was ready to let them go, period. Right? I mean, he changed his mind after a few days, but at that point, the plague of the 10th plague, the killing of the firstborn son, ready to let them go. But yet, no. Because spiritually, it reflects the idea of the need to escape. The divine soul, the Jew, needs to escape the imprisonment, the straits, the constraints, the limitation, the imprisonment of Egypt. So that's why it's reflected that way. Exactly. Thank you, Michael. Thank you. All right. Beautiful. I mean, very powerful stuff indeed, what we learned today. It's a whole chapter in one day that could be broken down into so many parts, but we got it basically. Okay. Please, anything that has nothing to do with learning Tanya, please take it off. Don't. It's not a place to share of whatever. Yes, I know that there's difficulties around the world, but I will delete them. So please don't share those things that don't fit in. Speaking on Facebook, in particular at the moment. Any other questions? Any comments? I see. All right, beautiful, folks. As I say every day, amazing. You, my inspiration. In learning together. Oh, Lipa has a question on Instagram. Okay. So 2 question marks first. I'm sorry, I don't see it. I don't see it. My apologies. All right, to be continued. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Judaism.Chabad. It's a pleasure and a privilege to share with you the Tanya. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining. God bless.